The discourse surrounding the future of cannabis in the Kingdom of Thailand is frequently characterized by a lack of clarity, particularly when observed through the lens of international news media. These narratives often employ broad generalizations, thereby obscuring the intricate nuances that define the contemporary Thai socio-political landscape. It is imperative to dissect these complexities to foster a more accurate understanding, moving beyond mere sensationalism. Firstly, it is paramount to recognize the precise legal status of the document currently under discussion. The Ministry of Public Health's proposed announcement regarding cannabis as a controlled herb. This document, critically, represents a draft proposal for legislative consideration. It has not yet achieved the status of enacted law. Previous instances illustrate a pattern where similar legislative drafts have been submitted for parliamentary review, only to remain unaddressed or ultimately disregarded. The progression from a ministerial proposal to its promulgation in the Royal Gazette is a protracted and often politically charged process, subject to extensive negotiation, compromise, or even outright abandonment. Consequently, any presumption of its immediate and comprehensive implementation reflects a misunderstanding of the inherent dynamics of the Thai legislative system. This foundational distinction is frequently absent from foreign journalistic accounts, which often react as though a restrictive legal framework is already established, rather than acknowledging the ongoing and fluid nature of the political process. Furthermore, it is essential to contextualize this situation historically, particularly concerning a delicate aspect of Thai governance. The initial decriminalization of cannabis was underpinned by a significant statement from His Majesty King Maha Vajiralongkorn Phra Vajirakladuchauyuhua, Rama X. His Majesty underscored the plant's deep roots within a millennium of Thai social and cultural traditions, extending beyond its purely medical applications. This royal endorsement provided a profound legitimacy for the broader availability of cannabis. However, the current government's proposed re-regulation, which accentuates a stricter focus on medical applications while imposing severe restrictions on recreational use, is perceived by some observers as a notable divergence from the spirit of that initial royal pronouncement. This scenario engenders questions concerning the interpretation of royal intent and how the executive branch navigates policy development in relation to such a broadly articulated and culturally significant royal decree. This perceived tension, whether actual or merely interpretive, represents a precarious political endeavor for any administration. It should not be misconstrued as a direct act of defiance but rather as an intricate negotiation of policy within a framework where royal wishes possess considerable gravitas and are amenable to diverse interpretations, particularly when public health considerations intersect with economic liberalization and traditional practices. This delicate equilibrium, often overlooked by external commentators, is central to comprehending domestic discourse. Should such a proposal, or a modified version thereof, ultimately be enacted, the ramifications for cannabis cultivators, dispensaries, and the broader marketplace would be immediate and substantial. Small and medium-sized cultivators, who invested considerable resources into establishing cannabis as a viable agricultural commodity, would confront augmented regulatory burdens, potentially prohibitive licensing fees, and more stringent controls on cultivation methodologies. This could precipitate a significant market consolidation, disproportionately benefiting large agricultural enterprises possessing the requisite capital and influence to navigate the intricate new regulatory environment, thereby marginalizing independent farmers. Dispensaries, which constitute the most visible facet of Thailand's burgeoning cannabis industry, would be compelled to undertake profound adaptations. The prevailing operational model, characterized by a semi-regulated gray area, would cease to be tenable. The most probable adaptive strategy, and one observed in other jurisdictions such as certain regions of the United States, involves dispensary proprietors obtaining herbal medicine licenses. Equipped with such licensure, these establishments could then issue a prescription with each transaction, ostensibly for minor ailments such as backache or headache. This ingenious circumvention effectively obviates the necessity for consumers to first consult a medical clinic for a formal diagnosis and prescription. Consequently, this mechanism could establish a de facto regulated recreational market operating under a medical guise, a loophole that authorities may find exceedingly challenging to monitor or comprehensively enforce without substantial resource allocation. For international visitors, the concept of a prescription valid for the duration of their visa presents an intriguing possibility. While standard medical practice typically advocates for shorter prescription periods, the economic imperatives associated with tourism in Thailand could realistically drive such an adaptive measure. This would represent a pragmatic solution, enabling tourists to access cannabis without the need for repetitive medical consultations, thereby sustaining a vital revenue stream from this demographic. It is important to note that the medical benefits of cannabis are not negated by these proposed legislative measures. Rather, they seek to channel its use predominantly through a formal medical framework, which, paradoxically, facilitates these resourceful interpretations. The general marketplace would undoubtedly experience shifts in pricing structures and product accessibility. Should stringent regulations restrict supply or escalate the operational costs for legally compliant businesses, a corresponding increase in the prices of legally obtained cannabis could ensue. This scenario, regrettably, is a classic catalyst for the re-emergence and expansion of a black market. Demand for cannabis, particularly for strains with higher tetrahydrocannabinol content or those sought for recreational purposes, remains robust. If legal access becomes unduly cumbersome, prohibitively expensive, or excessively restricted in terms of product diversity, consumers will invariably gravitate towards illicit channels. An extant underground network, if provided with renewed impetus by perceived over-regulation, would flourish, thereby complicating efforts to ensure product quality and consumer safety. This outcome presents a public health risk that, ironically, the more stringent regulations ostensibly aim to mitigate. Regarding unforeseen developments, the proposition of a military revolution directly instigated by cannabis policy may constitute an overly sensationalized extrapolation. Nevertheless, it does allude to a deeper historical precedent within Thai political dynamics. While unlikely to serve as the sole trigger, any perception of governmental overreach, insufficient public consultation, or actions deemed incongruent with broader national sentiment, or even royal endorsement, can contribute to an environment of political instability. Should the government be perceived as mismanaging this issue, in conjunction with other potential policy shortcomings or a general erosion of public confidence, it could contribute to widespread disaffection. In the annals of Thai political history, such profound and prolonged dissatisfaction has, on occasion, served as a precursor to periods of significant upheaval. The cannabis issue, therefore, transcends its botanical nature, becoming a litmus test for the government's perceived legitimacy and efficacy in managing a highly visible and contentious policy, thereby testing the resilience of the prevailing political system against both public and economic pressures. In conclusion, international English-language news outlets have, characteristically, sensationalized a dynamic and uncertain situation. The document in question is a proposal, not a definitive law. The anticipated Thai approach will likely involve strategic interpretations and adaptive measures that permit the continued operation of the cannabis industry, albeit under a more stringent, medically oriented facade. The fundamental challenge lies in striking a judicious balance between public health imperatives, economic realities, and the intricate political navigation of interpreting broad royal pronouncements. The trajectory of cannabis in Thailand remains fluid, a narrative continually shaped by legislative deliberations, market adaptations, and the ever-present undercurrents of Thai political life. Prudent observation, extending beyond superficial headlines, is essential for a comprehensive understanding of its evolving future.